Welcome to this week's post-cabinet media conference. I have with me today the acting Prime Minister, the Honourable Minister Colin. We have the Minister of National Security and the Minister of Works and Transport. We'll start off with the Minister of Works and Transport, Minister Sinanan.
Good afternoon, members of the media. I'm here to just to report on the decisions of the charter of the superfast cargo vessel. On the 30th of March, we received a notice letter from the charters that the boat will be pulled from service on or about the 14th in the first instance, which would have been the Easter Friday. Subsequent to that, we received a letter from them stating that the boat will be here until the 18th of April. Immediately, the Port Authority and the technical team at the Ministry and at the port went into action, and we placed a tender out for the cabinet approval, which would have been the location of a new cargo vessel, one for purchase and one for a lease for a recommended period of about 3 years. At this point in time, we are looking at all the options to ensure that there will be no shortfall in the transportation of the cargo to and from Trinidad and Tobago. We feel very confident that the Easter weekend, everything will be in place. Subsequent to the Easter weekend and until a new ferry is located, we have several options of contingency that will be in place. One of the options will be the T&T Spirit, which is a semi-cargo vessel where we have the capacity of vehicles up to a capacity of 7,000 kgs. Let me just get the exact amount. Then we have the option of a barge for material for construction, meaning sand, gravel, and cement. Of course, these are options. We are still looking at all the options available to us, and we are in the process of looking for additional transportation vessels that might be around that we can use for the interim until the new vessel is located and can be put into service. Yeah. We also have the use of 2 military vessels that we are looking at the options of bringing them into the service as and if required. The cabinet have also, as I said before, taken the decision to go out for the purchase of a brand new vessel to ensure that in the future we do not find ourselves in this position where we have to be given 14 days notice and we have to put contingencies of an emergency nature in place.
Could possibly have other service vessels that could
Yeah. We also have the option of other service vessels that are in the Trinidad waters, not necessarily working for the Port Authority, but that is working for some of the energy sector. And we are exploring the options of engaging some of them in the event that we need to move cargo to and from the island where we have a shortfall in capacity.
I am going to give you a very brief report on what happened last week with the substantive Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, and myself. I accompanied him to some meetings in Houston to meet with BP, Shell, Exxon, and EOG. Now, those meetings were really the culmination of months and months of discussions, negotiations that have been ongoing with those entities between the Ministry of Energy, National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, and these various entities, Shell, EOG, BP. And then we had reached out to Exxon not too long ago. And those conversations and active negotiations were with respect to Trinidad and Tobago getting adequate supplies of upstream gas for our downstream industry. And having carried out those negotiations and discussions over quite a number of months, because what happened is when we came in as an administration, we found that there were a number of contracts that had expired. This then equated and resulted in claims being filed against NGC in the billions of dollars, some of those claims being filed in August 2015, and then also expired down to downstream contracts between NGC and others. There had also not been sufficient work done previous to that, so upstream contracts had also expired, and we immediately came in and faced additional curtailment that had been happening in the industry since 2011. So since 2011, Trinidad and Tobago has been suffering from substantial curtailment issues, meaning that the upstream suppliers were not providing NGC with sufficient amounts of gas to then be able to, for NGC to supply our downstream industry, which, as you know, is quite a sophisticated, well-recognized international industry where they make methanol, ammonia, urea, and other hydrocarbon products. So as an administration, we came in and immediately started dealing with that. We were also faced with what you all know to be the CGCL issue, which was thankfully solved in favor of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the Caribbean Gas Chemical Limited issue with Mitsubishi, Massey, and NGC. And then we began these discussions and negotiations, which not only focus around price, but also volumes. And us being a mature province now, the cost of exploration, etc., has gone up. The price of commodities has gone down. So we came in and found ourselves in a situation where it was almost the perfect storm, with contracts having expired, billions of dollars of claims against NGC, us being shortchanged with the amount of gas we were getting from upstream, etc. And after some very intense negotiations taking place with NGC, the Ministry of Energy officials, at times I was mandated by the Prime Minister to get involved and to assist. The Prime Minister then set up a number of meetings in Houston, which took place last week. And I'm happy to report to Trinidad and Tobago, you all were getting the feedback on a daily basis from Houston, that those rounds of discussions were very, very successful for Trinidad and Tobago. And the short-term position between 2017 and 2019, where we have a number of upstream projects coming on board, we've managed to make quite a significant amount of headway. So the final set of discussions would have taken place at the BP meeting and the EOG meeting, where the Prime Minister agreed with the executives from BP and EOG certain prices on gas. Of course, that was based on our discussions and our support from both NGC and the technocrats at the Ministry of Energy, but it needed that final push for it to become a reality. So those contracts are now in the process of being executed between NGC and BP, one of them being the Angeline project, which is continuing and on its way to final sanction. But if that meeting with the Prime Minister and the BP executives didn't take place, we may not even have an Angeline project today. And BP were very careful to point out that this is a conversation that began prior to September 2015, and it just wasn't fast-tracked. What we found a lot of the downstreamers telling us whose contracts had expired, that they had tried with the previous administration to have negotiations and active negotiations to agree price and volume, and that was not done. It just kept being kicked down the road. So the BP conversation went very, very well. The Prime Minister literally walked off of the plane straight to the meeting with BP because we had experienced some bad weather flying into Houston. There were thunder and lightning storms that made the pilot sway south of Houston and west for over an hour. So we were delayed in our arrival in Houston by over an hour, and then getting to the meeting, we had to go straight to the meeting. Of course, that was not the plan. The intention was for there to be a break before. Went into the meetings with the BP executives that lasted for a few hours, and then went straight on to Shell after that, and then Shell the following morning. The success of the BP meeting is not only the sanctioning of the Angeline platform and that gas which will come in 2019, and that's really meant just to pick up where Juniper is tapering downwards. The Angeline project will just keep us stable. But in our discussions with the BP executives at the highest level, we basically were advocating the position of this administration that, one, there should be as many jobs for locals as possible. Two, that we would like any extra gas that becomes available through new technology technology, further compression, and matters like that to go to our downstream industry as opposed to LNG. That was received favorably by BP. So it means that there's a possibility if BP manages to find more gas between now and 2019 when Angeline and they told us about a number of other projects that they're going to exploration and production with come on board, that we will get the benefit of that gas for downstream, which is a big plus for Trinidad and Tobago. We also agreed the final prices of the gas for both the downstream industry as well as for our power industry, which is T&T and other light industries that use some gas. And then BP also told us that they have completed significant 3D seismic research, and that's being processed right now. And from what they're seeing initially, it looks very positive for Trinidad and Tobago. So that means more gas in the future. The next day, we spent the whole day at Shell, starting off the morning period in their laboratories, which were very, very informative. And then they began to roll out to us their projects and what they intend to do in Trinidad and Tobago, which is significant investment. Of course, BP independently came out and said that from 2017 going forward to 2022, 2023, they intend to invest $5 to $6 billion in Trinidad and Tobago. They also said for the remainder of 2017 is over $1 billion they will invest in Trinidad and Tobago. And they did tell the Prime Minister that they appreciated the rebuilding of the relationship at the highest level, that is at the level of the Prime Minister and the executives. And that has given them the fortitude and the confidence going forward. So they're here to stay. Shell the next day was the technical stuff in the morning, and they showed us some of the seismic, the benefits of the 3D seismic work that's now available internationally, and that's being done in Trinidad and Tobago. And then when we went into the afternoon period with the Shell executives, including a Shell executive who sits on the Shell International Board and is in charge of the gas projects, etc., there is a very, very positive outlook for the continuation and, in fact, the building of the gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And that's a very, very important message because they've said that they're going to be investing billions in Trinidad and Tobago. They spoke to us about specific projects that they're going to bring back on stream, ideas they have. Shell, as you would know, is also a player in the Laura and Manatee field. We discussed what was going on with Dragon and the progress that had been made in a very short period of time with respect to Dragon. So despite some of the conversation we're hearing out there and some of the people who are trying to dampen the Dragon project, that is a first for Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. Well, first for Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela as an entity in going across border as opposed to Laura and Manatee, which is a cross-border field of gas. So that is proceeding very, very positively, and we expect another very important matter that came out of the Shell meeting is Shell promised and gave us an undertaking to continue to supply the levels of gas that they're doing now until the end of 2018. Their contract was actually expiring in December of 2017. So that provides NGC with the ability to continue with its downstream contracts going all the way up to the end of next year. Shell as well agreed that if they were able to locate and produce any gas, and they expect to have some of that in 2017, we will then discuss some further allocation for downstream industry. So that was another positive day and the type of investments they intend to continue with. On the last day, we then started off a meeting with the Exxon officials. As you know, Exxon is a partner, a 45% partner in Guyana with two other entities, and they've made significant findings of oil in Guyana. That, again, was a very good conversation. We, as an administration, had reached out to Exxon a few weeks ago when we knew the Prime Minister was going up to Houston to ask to meet with them, and at least to try and attract as much investment into Trinidad and Tobago, but also to put forward to Exxon that we as Trinidad and Tobago, who have a lot of experience, we're recognized internationally with our both intellectual experience, the experience our people have in the oil and gas industry, as well as our service providers, that is available in Trinidad and Tobago for us to assist the government of Guyana with. The Prime Minister had spoken the previous month with President Granger of Guyana, and that conversation is continuing, and we're hoping to sign an MOU with Guyana shortly, both on the agricultural front as well as on the energy front and the services we can provide. Exxon were very interested in our deep water harbors in Trinidad and Tobago. That's an advantage we have. And they have been utilizing our service industries. So the Prime Minister invited the Exxon officials and executives to come to Trinidad and to do an official tour to see the type of resources we have here. That was favorably received, and they intend to continue conversation with Trinidad and Tobago and hopefully make a visit in a very short time frame. From Exxon, we went straight to EOG. EOG, as you would be aware, has been in Trinidad and Tobago since 1992. They have built themselves as one of the most efficient operators in the upstream industry in Trinidad and Tobago and are able to produce gas at a much lower cost than some of the other big multinationals. The negotiations with EOG had stalled, and what we managed to do in the space of that meeting with the EOG executives was to unstick it and further to agree a price for gas going forward with EOG. As soon as that was done, and we agreed to the price with EOG, their executive chairman and CEO immediately instructed that exploration wells that were being stalled in Trinidad be activated, and he also gave instructions that 3D seismic research be done in some of the fields that EOG is in. So that again was a very positive for our gas industry in Trinidad and Tobago and showed their commitment. So all in all, the message is that the visit was a resounding success, and that we have a lot of hope on the horizon. We know that a lot of new gas will come on stream from 2019 going forward, and the period between now and 2019 also looks to be stable, and also we have managed to broker that if there's any further gas available, because there are a number of opportunities, that they will get it. And also during that period in time, there were the grants of further licenses, production, not in Houston, but taking place in Trinidad and Tobago as well. So these things, we're running parallel paths. It's not just one path we're going down, but we've really been working very, very hard, and the Prime Minister managed to bring home quite a bit for Trinidad and Tobago in the space of those 3 days. When he gets back, he will brief us further on some of the other things that went on during that trip.